Brieflings and Frightlings, it's Margaret here. Welcome to another episode of the Femme Fatalities. Today I am joined with...
Hi, my name is Arika, and I will be co-hosting today.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, of course.
So did you want to let them know what movie we will be discussing today?
Yes, so today we will be talking about Sinister.
Yes, so trigger warnings. The found footage videos of children killing their families is disturbing. There's children murdering, child abduction. What else is there? The son that has the night terrors and sleepwalks.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Any other trigger warnings? Scorpion dies, so the animal does die. Overall, I'm gonna say this is a fairly unsettling movie, and I watch a lot of horror, and I feel like not a lot unsettles me. As Arika knows, there's probably only 2 movies that have really kind of, well, no, not 2. A handful got under my skin. This was one of those that when I first watched it, it got under my skin. So be warned, I think it really was on my rewatch. The found footage that really just is so unsettling. And the idea that there can be these supernatural energies at play that can impact you, and how sometimes we make decisions in life thinking we're making the right decision, and it turns out we're actually making the decision that is really going to cause us harm. So if you haven't watched the movie, stop listening, go watch it, come back, and then join it, because this is... I really enjoyed it. Maybe not enjoy, but this is a good movie, especially if you're into horror. And I think enjoyed Ethan Hawke's acting.
I love Ethan Hawke. I love him. I feel like he's also one of the actors that's, also very good with children and children actors, because he's done it a lot in past films, and I've heard, great things about him on set. I heard that while he was filming Black Phone, where he has to, abduct a child, that during that scene, he was very, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Do you need to stop?" And just very caring, and just all over, like, great guy. So I am happy that, he was... I feel like that was definitely on this film with those other actors, of him just being very concerned for their well-being, which we love to see it.
Yes, that is... It feels good when you hear those stories about the people that are in the movie, and knowing that they're very mindful of their younger
co-stars.
Yes, I think what I've heard about it and Bill Skarsgård, and I think you've seen that clip too, where the little boy that plays the brother that gets abducted.
Georgie.
Yes, just loves Bill Skarsgård, painted as a Pennywise.
Pennywise was more afraid of Georgie than Georgie was Pennywise behind the scenes.
And you just see him like, yay! Like, seeing Pennywise, which is... It feels good to see, because these movies are meant to scare us, and then you see the actors.
It's nice to
they're
see
not
that
scared.
Yeah, behind the scenes, not being terrified or, having to, deal with that there. So it's really nice to see that their adult co-stars are looking out for them. So we love to see it.
Yes. So Sinister is about a true crime writer whose career isn't going so good, and he really doesn't want to write college textbooks, and so he's moving on to his next true crime that he's going to write about a family that was murdered, and one of their children disappears, which links him to how 5 families are murdered. His becomes the 6th family.
I believe so, because it started, as far as they can trace back in the movie, in the 60s, and each of the found footage films also has like a very ominous, creepy title on it. So they're like these old film reels, Super 8, right? Or something.
Or maybe 35 millimeter, but
Yeah.
they're old.
They're old.
Projector. Like, so if you were probably born,
For my Gen Zers out there, you have no idea what we're talking about.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If you're born past a certain date, like I'm Gen X, and the projector was something we had like in elementary school. When we went to the movie theater, they had a projector. Everything's digital now, but they were fading out.
Yeah, we didn't have one like that when I was growing up, but my grandparents most likely did. So I would say I'm super familiar with those films. Like I haven't used one personally, but I have definitely, seen them in media and things like that. But all of the films have like really creepy titles. Like one of them's like Pool Party, which the family ends up getting drowned. Which that one really messed with me. Drowning just freaks me out for some reason. There was Family Barbecue, and the family ends up getting burned alive in their car. What was the other one? One was like yard work with the lawnmower. They get run over by a lawnmower. There was, I think, Hanging Out was the tree one, where the house that Ethan Hawke's family moved into. And then I feel like I'm forgetting one.
There's where they get stabbed or they're yeah, I don't remember.
Sleepy Time.
Yeah, Sleepy Time.
So yeah, there's 5.
And what's unsettling is like how they're shot. And you're like watching these with, so Ethan Hawke finds them in the attic and you're watching them with him. So, and I take notes while I watch these and I wrote down who's filming. And at that, like basically at the same time in the movie, he's like, who's filming this? And he jots it down. I'm like, okay, so this is, he's aware that we don't know. And you learn later in the movie, actually, one of the children is filming this.
Mm-hmm. They find in, I thought it was interesting when he talks to the college professor about, because he ends up finding like these weird images pretty much in every crime. Like he's going through these reels, like he downloads them, or not downloads them, but films them so he can have them on his computer, so there's a digital version of it. So he can really go frame by frame, because you can't really do that if it's just a roll of film. I guess you could, but I don't know how to do that. But so he can go frame by frame, and he starts seeing like these weird symbols painted on pretty much somewhere in all of the crime scenes and all the videos. And the college professor is very familiar with it. He studies, it's not demonology. He's like he's a crime expert in crimes related to,
the occult, yeah.
So he knows the symbol, and it's of Bagul, which is a demon that eats children. Bagul is not a real demon. He was made up for the movie. But he definitely is based on, other entities and things that we see in mythology. Like, there is a Greek god that does eat children. Lots of Greek gods actually eat their children. If you think about it. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of demons that Bagul is based off of, but Bagul himself is not real. Unless you make
I don't know if we comment to add, and that is, being since we're talking about the occult, that is that theory in the occult that something cannot be real, like Bagul, and that if somebody believes in Bagul, that would take us into the urban legend of Slenderman, who was created in a creepypasta contest. The original person has talked about this, and yet he has now become part of our urban folklore, our urban legend. A lot of people believe in Slenderman. There were the 2 girls that killed because of him. And I think you bring up a good point. Bagul was made for a movie, just like Slenderman was made for creepypasta. I believe it was a creepypasta contest.
I heard it was a creepypasta contest. I also heard it was like a college project to study like the implications of starting like a rumor or something online. So something along those lines.
Yes.
But in all urban legends, you know, their origin twists and turns with each generation and each person that tells it on. But yes, they're not real. But we almost essentially make them real.
Because then we believe in them, and so that they grow. Because then they get a following, and that's when we get into tracing back the urban legend. And there are still people today that will argue with you that they'll say, no, Slenderman is real. And you can show them proof. Because I found the website, the guy talking about it, he showed his pictures and he goes into it. And people are like, no, that's not it. Because things that have belief have weight to them, and like you're touching on. In our society, that is one way we make sense of children that we can't understand. Oh, they must have been eaten by a demon, or this child did this bad thing and I can't comprehend that. So I can comprehend it by having a supernatural entity explain it away, like possession, all these ways that we try to explain something we don't understand.
Right. That made me think of that whole, it's a whole other can of worms, but the devil made me do it case.
Yes.
Which is just so insane. But like I said, whole other can of worms. But yes, Bagul is not real. I think they did a very good job with him. I thought the symbol that they came up for him was really neat. Sinister is one of my favorite movies because it scared me. That's for me, that's how I justify my favorite movies is, did it scare me? Did I jump? Was I just so into the story? And it was Sinister for me, it was scary. Especially just with following, Ethan Hawke's character, and watching him, investigate and go through this whole thing, and then even with him, like, because he's dealing with something supernatural, are his lines blurring as well between reality and what Bagul is showing him. I do love the actor that is Deputy so-and-so that finds all the information for him. I do really like that character.
And I think you touch on something too that the movie brings up right off at the beginning, that Ethan Hawke's character, I can't think of his name, Edison or Elliot or something like that. I think we're Ellister, I think. He doesn't have respect for police. Police don't have respect for him. He's kind of like, well, some cops get it right, some cops get it wrong. When the sheriff meets him outside his new home, and the sheriff is really like, hey, like, our community's still healing. Like, this was a tragedy for our community. Like, please just be mindful. And they kind of have this where Ethan Hawke's like, well, not all cops get it right. And he's like, and some do. Like, and I'm asking you, like, we're still a community that's healing. Like, be sensitive. And so I really love that Officer So-and-so figures it out, because they kind of set this thing that, like, the police don't follow the evidence, or they miss things, or that. And I agree, like we see with internet sleuths, they can go back and see what somebody missed, not because cops are doing their jobs, because they're human and we miss something. And I always appreciate another set of eyes looking at something I'm working on, because that's another perspective. That's somebody's going to see something that I don't see.
Right.
And so I think Ethan Hawke's kind of ego got into that, like, well, I'm going to see what you didn't see, instead of this collaborative, like, no, like,
well, I think he was still, riding that high from Kentucky Blood, which was his big 15 minutes of fame, and I thought in the movie, there's a part where he's watching an old interview of himself, and he was interviewed shortly after Kentucky Blood. And in the interview, he says, "I would rather cut my own hands off than chase this for fame or money." And you see in his face just like the disappointment and the realization of like how much he has changed.
Mm-hmm.
That this isn't about, solving something or helping a community. For him, it's his next big break. Which I think also, really contributing to blurring the facts for him. And yeah, Deputy So-and-so does, figure it out. I thought that was a really cool, I don't know if it would be considered a twist in the movie, where all the families had lived in the house before.
Mm-hmm.
So, the first family got murdered and they died in the house, the next family moved in, and then when they moved out, they got killed. And then another family moved into their house, and so on and so forth. And because Alistair decided to write his book and live in the house that his family was murdered in, Deputy So-and-so says it really well, that if this guy is still out there, you just put yourself in his timeline. Because he moves out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, once they move out,
Yes.
their daughter murders their family and is taken by Bagul to wherever it is that Bagul resides.
Yes, to be one of. I mean, I know it says that he eats them, but yet it also feels like he uses them because all the previous children are leading the next child to join them. And I did appreciate that sort of twist. Like, no, like you think like, okay, this house is haunted, all this scary shit's happening, we're gonna go back to where we feel safe. And that's why I think in these home movies, the family looks relaxed because they're leaving something where they didn't feel safe, and now they're going someplace where they do feel safe. And I think the movie touches on our sense of safety. Where do we have security, and how easily that can be disrupted and gained.
Yeah. And yeah, they all, moved out of their haunted houses, to safety, which I think anybody would do. I would like to say that I wouldn't do that because I've seen enough scary movies to know that it's going to follow you. It's going wherever you're going. But I think if I was really put in like some crazy supernatural situation like that, I'd be like, nope, I'm moving. Send somebody to get my stuff. I'm out of here.
Well, I think you've touched on that's why I like supernatural movies scare us so much, is because it's this element we can't control, we don't understand. And I know you and I have had conversations about various supernatural beings, and we were even earlier talking about how in American culture there's this sense that if you're being haunted by a spirit, that you just put its bones to rest and it'll be fine, missing that that's not always going to settle a soul. And so Sinister, again, is one of these movies that is touching on things that we don't know, that we don't understand,
right.
And then we kind of grasp at, how do I appease whatever it is? And like you said, so many times spirits become attached to people or objects, not necessarily the house, and we tend to just react and not be like, okay, wait, what am I running from? And if I leave the house, is the spirit attached to the house? So I'll leave the house and the spirit will stay and the next people will deal with it? Or has it decided, oh, thank you? So my dad had a buddy who went to an old mining town. So we're here in Colorado, so there's some old mining towns. And the child spirit followed them home. And the child would move the keys. And that was like the main thing. So I just remember Papa telling the story about, like, you never know. He was telling me this as a child. You never know what's going to follow you where you go places.
Yeah.
And that every time his buddy moved, the child moved with him. I don't know if it happened to the buddy or the child's spirit. It was probably...
Y'all gotta fear more than picking up bed bugs while you're out.
Yeah.
After watching this. Yeah, I think things just attach, whether that be your own vibrations that you're putting out there, or if it's just, like we see in movies, it seems to be just a series of bad luck. That people are put in these situations where they have to face something supernatural or paranormal. Yeah, I think paranormal and supernatural movies definitely scare us a lot more because, like you said, it's something we don't understand. Like a person, chasing somebody through the woods with a knife. It's scary, but they're a person.
Yes.
Albeit, though, killers in horror movies are, like, souped up.
Yes. But like you said, they're a person, so we feel like we have a standing chance against a person than something we can't see, something we don't understand. I think a lot of us have, and I love ghost hunting shows. I love the paranormal. I also tend to be a skeptic. I'm the one that's like, okay, what was it? What was it? And I can still say that I've had experiences where I couldn't be like, that was just a cat meowing in the other room, or that was the wind blowing, where I was like, okay, yeah, that was.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I do love ghost shows and everything, but I definitely lean more on believer, for sure. Like, if I watch ghost shows and, like, something falls over in my house because, gravity, it's ghosted it. It's automatically ghosts for me. There's no other logical explanation. And I think that's also, it entices fear, at least for me. But I will admit that I do, scare myself in those situations.
Yes. And the power of our imagination, which can really, I feel like if we get back to Sinister, we can see that with his oldest son, the one that has the night terrors, the power of imagination, how we can just, things can take over. We can be so afraid because our imagination just can go so many different places.
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked Ethan Hawke's character. I thought he did, of course, as always, great acting in that movie. And I think just watching him, slowly start to, lose it. He did that very well. And even when the wife's talking to him, like, you have never been this bad. You've never cracked into the whiskey this early. What is going on? And he, tells her, because I'm onto something big. And he was onto something big, but I think it was bigger than he thought it was going to be, to the point where it kind of just swallowed him.
Yeah, that's a great point, that it swallowed him. Well, I also wonder the trauma that he experienced, like watching those found footage. I cannot imagine. I mean, I can't imagine, as like I'm a counselor and I sit, people aren't showing me videotapes of their trauma, they're sharing that, or with the projector reels. That must, and he keeps going back because then, like you said, his on something big that becomes bigger than the trauma that he's putting himself through. I mean, he has to be drinking alcohol,
seeking, and his next big break.
Yes.
I think at a point, definitely in the movie, though, he doesn't care about the break anymore. He cares about the truth. And then, he does pretty much discover the truth. But, who's gonna believe him? And then at that point, it's just gotten too out of control to where he fears for his family's safety and does get them out of there because he thinks that that is what he has to do to protect them.
And it's too late.
Yeah. And who even knows what happened if he stayed in the house, too. I think the ghoul and the children that he abducts, do play with people's minds to get them to want to leave, to run away from what they're experiencing. Because whether it just be, for reasons only known to the ghoul, why they have to move out of the house and into a new one first, it puts them in his timeline to where he's like, okay, I've got you now.
Yes. Yeah, great point as well. Like, we don't know why Bagul does that. And you touch on like Ethan Hawke having to know the truth. And I think we can become blinded by that and we don't stop to be like, wait, do I really want to know the truth? Can I handle the truth? How will my life be impacted with the truth? We get so blinded and then we end up doing things that are going to harm ourselves and the people we love when we don't stop to really pray. Knowing the truth is going to do what for me? Is this going to better my life? Is this going to make me a better person? Or is knowing the truth going to be this huge catastrophe? Is it going to be something where knowing the truth could ruin a relationship? It could take somebody's life and he doesn't stop to do that because he's so obsessed with the truth. He's not going to let it go. I think as soon as I pay, Bagul, demon, I think I can let this go. I don't need to know anymore. You go back to bed, Bagul, you do your thing. Sorry, I woke you. Please find somebody else.
But I think Bagul puts people in that situation because it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you stay in the house, you're literally going to be haunted every day with all the weird stuff that, is going on in the house already. And who knows, maybe that's Bagul being at it too. Who knows what happens when he turns it up to 10? Or you move out of the house and you die.
Yes.
Either way, you are trapped there, and it's really difficult, especially when a family's involved. Because if you're just a single person, you could say, okay, I'll stay in the house and I will live with this, and I will, essentially be the gatekeeper and keep Bagul away. I will stay here and, sacrifice myself for the well-being of some other poor Joe that comes along. But when you have a family involved, you also have to think of these other people where it's you can't be the gatekeeper. You cannot stay there. You have to leave. But either way, you're putting your family and the people you love in danger. And I think when Ethan Hawke moved, he didn't realize that until he had already moved and finally picked up the phone from Deputy so-and-so. Because Deputy so-and-so was trying to warn him. He kept calling him. And, when he picked up the phone finally and talked to him, it was too late. But I think also for Alistair, that he was done with the story. He didn't care anymore. He didn't want to write about it. And, that makes sense why he would ignore his calls of I'm done with this story. Not doing it anymore, so I'm just not going to talk to you. But then there comes a point, where they're calling, you're okay, what? What do you want? And then he just had this, essentially life-shattering information.
Yes. I think you touch on that too. He's done. Ethan Hawke, he's done. He's out of there. So he just wants to put it behind him. So I don't even want to talk to Deputy Stones of no, actually, I have this information. I think this movie unsettles too, because you also touched on so often, and we were discussing this earlier too, in American cinema, and I'm not an expert here, so please, any other cinema folklore experts, please chime in. We want resolution. We want it to be, there's an angry spirit, I put it to rest this way. It's a demon, I conquer it this way. And it goes into more, I think, especially Japanese, where we have these spirits and they're unhappy and that they're just going to be unhappy and you don't have power, you don't have control. Bagul is going to do Bagul and there's nothing you can do. So often in American horror cinema, there's a way. You're going to conquer the demons. You're going to conquer the angry spirit. And Sinister is one of those rare movies that's kind of there is no hope. Once you've awoken to this energy, you are now in fate. You are in it, and this is now your fate. You're not getting out of it. You're not stopping it.
I feel there's a lot of, and I think that's what makes Sinister good too, is there is no hope. And that's what, even though they're horror movies, we still, hope for a happy ending. There's a lot of, movies that have still that hope in them of, the girl and this guy, they're gonna live. The movies that truly have that no hope, where you're I want to hate this movie because it ended like this, but then you don't because it's so good. I feel that makes horror truly an awesome genre. And taking things different from other countries and changing them for American cinema. A great example, spoiler alert, even though this movie's really old, Descent. Descent, I'm pretty sure, was Australian. It's the movie where they're all trapped in that cave. The girl gets out, she gets to her Jeep, and she's sitting in the car like, I escaped, I did it. And that's the end of the American version. The original version, which, like I said, I think it was Australian, could be wrong. Please correct me in the comments if you know. In the original, before it was changed for American cinema, the girl makes it to the car and she's like, oh, thank God. And then all of a sudden she snaps awake and she's still in the cave. And it's that dreading, no hope, you're screwed that just like hits you in the gut. And I think, although I do like the American ending because you're like, yay, she lived. The no hope one is truly horrifying. And that's what I think Sinister has to do, is like, you want their family to live. You're like, I really like this family, but it's too late. Yeah, they put themselves in the ghoul's timeline just by moving into a house.
Yes. And how often we don't. And I think that the movie brings back that awareness. He puts himself into ghoul's timeline, and it's hopeless. And we can see where he made mistakes, where he could have said, I don't have to move into the house where the family was murdered. I don't have to move my family into this house. I can live down the street. Like all these places that he could have made a different choice to not be in the ghoul's timeline. And so how often that happens in life, that, again, I'm big on like stopping. Why am I doing this? What is my motivation? What am I hoping to get out of it? So that I don't get down the road and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I've made a mistake. Maybe it's years of my life, because I used to just jump. And I'm like, okay, wait, why am I jumping? And if I jump, can I live with the consequences of my jump? I think Sinister shows us that he's just jumping because he, like you said, he's chasing that next thing, and he's not saying, well,
I think he's blinded by his own wants.
Yes.
I want my 15 minutes back. I want my fame back. I want the money back. And I mean, that's everybody listening or watching. It's a great, self-control that you have of thinking before you act, which, I mean, we all grew up with our parents asking us, like, think before you do something. Like, use your brain. I'm definitely one of those people where I'm just like, YOLO, and I just go do it. So everybody, that's the lesson of today. Yeah, think before you act, because you may end up in a ancient demon's murderous timeline. So just be careful.
Yes. And that's why I said maybe it's age that I've gotten to a place where I'm like, whoa, okay, I have jumped and had to live with consequences. Maybe I don't need to jump right now. And horror, I feel like that's why we're drawn to it, because it gives us this perspective. It's allowing us to look at our lives in a way that is just out of reality enough that, like, if we watch a drama, that can be like too much in reality, or a comedy, or these other, where horror just takes you just a little step outside of reality so you can get this other perspective about life. And Sinister is one of those movies that does it. Like I said, it's one of the movies that got into my head, probably because I think you touched on it, that hopelessness. Because the other one is The Ring. That's the other movie, and they both are two movies that are just hopeless. You're not. Like, once you're in the timeline, you're in it. And I think that is, for both these movies, where it's like, fuck. Like, that is where we have.
I think the writers and the directors that, do those movies where it's like, you have like that glimmer of hope. Like, in Sinister, you have them, they're leaving the house, he took his family out, they're going to be fine. And in The Ring, you have, they found her body, she's set free, and then in just an instant, it all turns around, and it's like, you thought, but no, you're not escaping. Right? You can't escape.
Yes.
And I do like when writers and, directors play that out, of like, you have this lifeline now and everything's going to be fine, and then it's just so easily snatched away from, the characters in the film. I think that is truly, what what scares us.
Yeah.
Is, the hopelessness and why those movies are so scary. I mean, they might not have the gore or the jump scares. I think it's the hopelessness where you think everything is going to be okay, and then it's not.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And I appreciate when they do that because I don't always want the happy ending in a movie. So in Sinister in The Ring, they're like, okay, we don't always have happy endings.
Mm-hmm.
That is true for life. Well, we may always find hope because hope is something we can always have. There are times in life where it is dreary, where we're on a course. And so how do we start to reconcile? Like, bad things happen to good people. That is just the world we live in. So Sinister, The Ring helps us say, okay, this is the world we live in. Things happen. How are we adapting? How are we dealing with it? Hopefully we're not putting ourselves in a demon or an angry spirit's timeline and upsetting them more. And how often are we in these places where shit just happens and we don't have control over that?
Yeah, and I think everybody experiences that at some point in their life where it just seems to be raining bad luck after bad luck after bad luck, And it just, I feel like a lot of, those horror movies do, eventually turn around. In The Ring 2, they turn around and it is hopeful again. The second one definitely was not as good as the first one. Eventually there is that goodness, even if it's just for a second. And that's in life too, where you see that, okay, I'm hopeful now, everything's going good, and then, turn around to going back to, like, the bad luck. And it's, essentially we're just on a Ferris wheel where you're gonna reach to the top eventually and be hopeful and good, but, eventually something's gonna happen. Your washer's gonna explode, your dog gets out one day, or,
I like that. Ferris wheel.
My grandma taught me.
Really?
Yeah, your mom taught me.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Just that if you haven't seen Sinister, go watch it. Like we said, it is scary. It's a good horror movie for sure.
It's unnerving. It's just, yeah, it's an unsettled watch. Again, like especially the found footage, and I am a found footage fan. Mm-hmm. So it's just when you're watching it, I found myself being like, oh my gosh, I'm very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go check it out. It's a great movie. If you like Ethan Hawke, great actor. You can find Sinister on HBO Max. Not sponsored yet.
Thank you. We'll catch you the next one.
Bye.